So good morning and happy Wednesday. We seem to have a very private session, looks like. So thank you for making it here. I know there's a couple of keynotes happening at the same time, and it's a large place to make it here. My name is Atul Athavale. I'm a part of DXC, an insurance executive there, and I'm pleased to welcome you to this session on how John Hancock revolutionized their insurance admin systems on cloud in a record duration of 13 months. So we'll talk through the story. They migrated their very important applications, their mission-critical applications that hold life insurance policies, annuities for years. How did they move from mainframe to cloud without missing a beat, right? So we'll talk through the story. And I'm pleased to welcome Marianne Fillion, who is IT director from John Hancock, who will kind of walk us through the story. So thank you, Marianne, for being here.
Thank you, Atul, and thank you, everyone, for having me. As Atul said, I'm Marianne Fillion. I'm Director of IT at John Hancock, mainly in the annuities space. I'm here to share our story of our partnership with DXC, as well as our teams internally to move our legacy applications to AWS.
So thank you, Marianne. John Hancock, as you all know, is a subsidiary of Manulife, and it's one of the largest life insurers here in the US. They're based in Boston, Massachusetts. We also have Rose Amran, who is an AVP there, joining us today. So Rose, thank you for being here. John Hancock has 160 years of heritage and history, serving 10 million plus customers here in the US, providing insurance, investments, and retirements products. And one of their flagship products is Vitality, where customers get rewarded for managing a healthy life. So you should take a look at that. DXC is very proud to be a long-term partner to John Hancock. We started a partnership in 1988 when Vantage was implemented there. And Marianne was still part of the project. So
I was 12.
So it's been a long journey. And since then, we have participated in many core systems transformations, new product implementations, their digital initiatives. So we'll also cover part of it as we kind of work on the core system migration. We also have to work on the periphery to ensure we can drive the customer experience. With that, I'll also like to invite Murli Nguru, who is our Global Director for Mainframe Modernizations. So Murli, if you could.
Hey everyone, good morning. This is Murli Nguru. I'm the Global Director and Head of the Mainframe Practice at DXC. Looking forward to have this conversation here with Mariana and bring you the facts of what we have gone through the journey and what went wrong, what went good, and what are the results out of this. So excited to be here.
So thank you, Murli, and I would also like to welcome Rao Panchmarthi, who is a global solutions architect for mainframe modernization from AWS. So welcome, Rao.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rao. I lead the worldwide solution architecture for AWS, supporting our customers migrating and modernizing their mainframe applications to AWS. So we have teams of people across the worldwide supporting our customers, solving their problems and mission-critical applications migrating to AWS. Looking forward to have this conversation.
So I'm going to go ahead and start with my questions here. So I'm going to moderate it. So it's better for me to sit there and be at their level when I ask them questions. So I'm going to start with Marianne and ask you some business-related questions on John Hancock. Now, of course, the core systems hold about million-plus policies, would be termed as very risky from a business standpoint.
Right.
What were the factors that were driving this mainframe modernization from a John Hancock standpoint?
So from a John Hancock perspective, customers is what we thrive for, right? So our customer journey is what we wake up thinking about. So how do you get there? You get there by going digital. What else do? You do that by streamlining processes. We had many payout systems when we had the merger with John Hancock and Manulife Financial, so we wanted to combine them. So we had two directives, right? We wanted to be digital. We want our customers to have the best service they can, as well as we want our operations areas to be able to process and to be able to streamline all of these things so they can service the customer. So we called upon DXC and we said, these are what we need to accomplish. How do you accomplish that? Well, we need to go to the cloud to get some REST APIs to get those enabled. And we got about 30 APIs enabled. Now, did we use them all at once? No, we didn't. So in the first conversion or migration to the cloud, we moved our Vantage and WMA instances on the annuity side to AWS. But we also we had an existing RPS system, which was a payout system with DXC, and we migrated that to our WMA system. That all happened in the 13 months, and that was very aggressive, but by communication, collaboration, and commitment. Commitment is something that we really looked for in a company to help us with this journey, and DXC delivered.
Thank you so much for that, Mary Ann. And of course, when you do such a large transformation, when you're looking at, million-plus policies, if you go under the hood, it's probably, more than 2 million line worth of code, all that being moved to cloud. I'm sure there will be a lot of roadblocks, right? Things that come up that you've not seen, that you've not anticipated. So what were some of the key roadblock challenges that came across, as you went through this migration?
I think the main thing is integrating with our existing downstream systems, right? Making sure that it's transparent to them. They didn't have a lot of work on their end because what's our journey may not be theirs planned out for that year. So that would be difficult. Our network teams, just making sure compliance, making sure disaster recovery is covered, all of that. So, those were the things that I like challenges. I call them like learning experiences. So, and we work through them by having that commitment by everyone.
And how do you get the peripheral systems, the businesses on board when you're touching the core, right? How do you ensure that everybody is aware, they're well communicated, right? They know what's coming down the pike?
You threaten them? No. So to do that, so that's a lot of years of an experience, and I have many. So you need to reach out to whoever you think this is going to touch. Whether you think that it's going to affect them or not, you put it out there. Transparency is key. Always get the right people involved, the right people to work on things, and sometimes not, and you grow with that. And I think it's a learning experience. But that's what we do. That's how I approach every project, every effort that it comes across my desk, Rose's desk. We look at who does this affect, and that is also including the customer.
Yeah, so I'm sure business would be happy with all the communication there, and of course with the benefits, right? Once the migration was done. So what were some of the key business benefits you achieved in terms of your digital journey?
So the biggest thing that we had was in the second move to the cloud with WMA Life, but we also had a system called ABA, and Annuity Benefit Administration. And I'm not going to lie, but this system was administered by two guys in a garage, and I'm not lying. So it was a very old system. That system also had an illustration system built in. I was the most proud that we built an illustration system within our existing WMA that allowed us to digitally work with other companies, vendors, to get these mailings real time, to fax out quotes, to fax out the illustrations, to email them to, and then the whole, mailing. So I was the most proud of that, and we're going to build on that. So that's our future. What else can we do? That was illustrations, but can we do correspondence? What can we do?
And how do you get such business case approved, right? Because every time you try to get this business case approved, there's not probably enough business benefit, right? And business doesn't see it. So how do you kind of tie the two and ensure you get the money you need to make such transformation?
You tie it to the journey. I'll talk about customer journeys all day. You tie it to the journey. What is the journey? You know your audience. Who are you trying to make life better for? So that you tie your business case to the journey, and they always fall for it.
Thank you so much. And one last question before we move to Murli around the business benefits. What about the end customer and the agents? Did they see any change, or it was kind of more very seamless for them? How was that received?
So my thoughts on that is, if you're changing or you're streamlining processes, you're allowing your call centers to answer questions within seconds versus minutes versus toggling systems. So to me, that makes a customer and an agent very happy. So I would leave it there.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you for that. And we'll come back to you, Marianne. But before that, let's move on to Murli and ask you a question around DXC. So this case study is specific to insurance, right? But if you look at the larger picture, you see thousands of MIBs lying around in mainframe. So how is that impacting experience journeys, digital journeys? Is that an imperative? How are you looking at it?
Absolutely, Atul. So if we have to go back like 10 years, when somebody put the mainframe modernization as one of the agenda items on the CIO's budget, he would be seeking, oh, okay, I can take it as an optional thing. But over a period of time, this table system, which has been catering millions of instructions per second, which is like snap of a second, you're able to do everything on the business level, on this machine, very stable, highly reliable. But this platform started having the problems, right? So the cost of ownership of this platform, the mainframe, started going up. At one point of time, all the CEOs woke up and said, hey, what's happening with this platform now? Should we have to rethink of this, right? For the last 5 years, Rav, keep me honest on this. There is no CIO who have mainframe in their core enterprise is not looking at it. I mean, they're very serious about transforming it. Just not because of the cost, the people availability to manage this. As Mariana rightly said, she got only 2 people on the garage to manage this.
Skills.
Right? What if she loses the both? She can't put her business at rest. Same agility, scalability, both. So you cannot have like tens of releases per month on this platform, right? And at the same time, if I wanted to scale down, will I get the benefits back? Or if I want to go up, will it be like coming at a free of cost or any other benefits that's going to give? So with all these problems surrounding, CEOs are very serious about modernizing their core enterprises running on mainframes today, right? So if you look at it, take the Mariana's business case. They wanted to move a 400 MIPS mainframe, 2 million lines of code in hand, and the budget is given. So they called DXC and they asked, hey, DXC, can you just help us with this? Hey, Atul, we all planned this program to be pretty much in budget. We brought our expertise into the mix because we have been doing this business for the last 20 years. So in order to have a successful mainframe modernization, you need to have experienced folks who have done this before. And you need to have an expert hands on the system to start migrating this in a phased manner, in a well-controlled manner. But as Mariana rightly said during the start of the business, she wanted to see a risk-free migration, which means that on a Monday morning after cutover, she needs to have a peaceful morning. So she doesn't want it to take the risk. So we have chosen the method of rehosting using the Micro Focus technologies to take this WMA product into the AWS Cloud native environment. And we leverage the expertise from AWS as well. So with the combination of the great visionary from Mariana and our experience of handling this as an SI partner and the technology partner AWS, it was just a magic. We were able to transform this in 10 to 15 months, and the results were awesome. Right? Back to the point of industry. Industry is seeing this very significantly, and there are large-scale programs going on, and the number of innovations available in the market is very good, so that customers now have a choice of various options where they can make a choice to move ahead.
So I think to that point, there were some options even for John Hancock, right? And you chose to go with DXC. That's less risky. You wanted it seamless for the business. But then the question comes up is around COBOL on cloud, right? Because you're still migrating COBOL, containerizing it, and I get that asked a lot. So what's the roadmap from there, right? Now you have COBOL containerized working on cloud, maybe a black box, but is that a challenge, right? Is that an impediment? And then what's the roadmap from there?
Well, Atul, if we have to be very honest on this topic, the choice of language is just left to Mariana's team to decide what's their risk factor on this. See, some people say, hey, can I just refactor everything and keep it in Java native environment? Of course, we do have solutions to do that. But what is the risk taking appetite in this case? Mariana don't wanted to see this as a different thing in the journey. So she wanted a like-for-like migration to happen and no changes to the environment, but wanted to get the business benefits of the entire cloud-native environment behind the scenes. So it's going to be the modernization that we have taken for John Hancock is like-for-like replacement with no impact, but get the benefits of the whole cloud.
Sure. Now that helps. And getting more on the technology side of the house, right? While we heard a lot from Mariana on the business benefits and how it worked for business. From a technology standpoint, under the hood, I'm sure there'll be many challenges when you move 2 million line of code in 13 months over to cloud. What were some of those challenges? Were there any best practices, any CI/CD testing best practices that you implemented to ensure it's done in 13 months?
Yeah. See, when we do these kind of modernization projects, you can't always look at just the code and data, right? We have to look at the holistic platform as, right? So when you have your schedulers running your daily jobs, your onlines are interacting with surrounding systems, and your database sits there, and you have flat files, you have GDGs, you have vSAMs, you have a forest of technologies lying on the product. And it's heavily integrated with Java on the front end. So it's a combination of Java taking the front end and back end runs on the mainframe. So in such cases, what we have done to make this as a successful project is to make it the right waves in terms of what is the strategy to do with the code, what is the strategy to do with the database, what is the strategy to do with the scheduler migration, what is the strategy to do with the lack of profile migration, integrations, and testing, and making sure that the new platform is performed like how it was before. Two things we promised Mariana when we started this. One, the functional equivalence, and two, performance equivalence. Fortunately, we met both, and performance, I think Mariana has to confirm that for us.
No, that's very helpful, and we'll come back to you on the future of it. But before I move to Rao, just one last question, which again we get asked a lot, being in insurance. We did not face the problem in John Hancock really, but what do you do with the assembler code? There's a lot of assembler which you need to convert to something before you can actually put it on cloud. Right?
Yeah, good question, Atul. I think it's an industry-wide problem, not just DXCs or not just John Hancock, and not just the product problem. Even with the custom applications who are heavily dependent on assembler today, still faces the same challenges. So we have some partners who have certain tools developed with which we are able to extract the business rules from assembler, and depending on the choice, we are able to take them to COBOL and run it on mainframes or move it to cloud, or we are making the solutions to move directly from assembler to Java. So it depends on customer choices, and we are able to cater both the needs. So we do have solutions for this now.
That's very helpful. Thanks, Murli. And Rao will not let you sit quiet for a long time. So we are going to come to you because AWS, we're going through all the sessions, a lot of interesting announcements being made. In fact, DXC and AWS made a large announcement last week where we are going to accelerate digital journeys for 1,000 customers, retrain some of our staff, 15,000 of our staff on some of the latest AWS technologies, and also make our own delivery very seamless using some of the past features. So Rao, from your standpoint, when AWS looks at mainframe as a problem, right, or as an opportunity, do you really see zero mainframe, every customer being on cloud? What's your vision? What's AWS vision around mainframes and modernization?
Yeah, so Mainframes have been existent since the man flew to the moon. So because it supported the mission, Apollo mission, when the mainframes was part of that mission. So the customers and business has been using these mainframes for the last 50 years. And we see these mainframes continue to exist for a certain time, foreseeable time. So our goal is to actually, at AWS, we think everything from the customer perspective. So we broke this down into 3 areas. Why customers are really looking forward to modernize? What are the biggest problems during the migration and modernization? How do we help solve that? Let's start with the why problem, like how Marianne and Murali explained. Why is just broken down into 3 simple parts. The first one comes down to cost of managing the software and hardware of the platform. The second comes down to the risk comes with the maintaining this platform. The skill set, it's tough to find the skills in the market, and a lot of people are not getting trained out of the schools and colleges with these skill sets, and as well as innovation, lack of innovation and supporting and all that. And finally comes down to the business agility. So we start with that. Once we solve the why part of the problem, then we move on to what. So what we actually, during our customer conversations, what we have found out is customers are ready to migrate, but there is a lot of roadblocks. First, there are too many tools in the market. They really don't know which tool to use. Once they identify the tool, is the tool really going to solve the problem? And how to accelerate the modernization. So we went and actually kind of researched in the market and identified the best-in-class tools and curated those tools and integrated into the AWS mainframe modernization service. And we launched a managed service, which is basically eliminates all the friction points through the migration project, starting from the assessing your code base, transforming your code base, developing, testing, and finally deploying and running it. So AWS has launched that service. Our vision is to kind of eliminate these pain points throughout the migration projects and successfully run and maintain that. Because mainframes are being known for highly resilient, secure, and well-maintainable platforms. So we want to give the similar and best experience when the customers migrate so that it still maintains and gives the high resiliency best to operate. So our vision is to continue to expand, and we made many announcements yesterday, the new announcements. And we started with two patterns. First, which is refactored with Blue Edge, replatform with Micro Focus, and then we launched replication with Precisely, and we added many more on top of it.
Mm-hmm. That's very helpful, and I think as you accelerate the mainframe modernization journeys for your customers, how do you see DXC partnership from your perspective? From DXC's standpoint, we have the largest insurance footprint on AWS, right? We have 14.5 million policies being administered in AWS as we speak. How do you see the partnership working for you and helping accelerate the journeys?
Yeah, DXC is basically one of the top insurance software providers because I think you have the highest number of customers in the insurance sector that you are supporting, and you also have largest number of insurance policies maintained on AWS platform. So from the partnership point of view, we actually, as part of the AWS mainframe modernization migration competency, you are one of the first partners who get competency certified to support and migrate the customers as well. So I think a lot of people from Murali's organization who's part of the mainframe modernization practice has been certified with AWS Blue Edge, which is kind of L3 level. So from the skill sets point of view, the software providing point of view, and as well as, and you also mentioned about the press release we made as our partnership. And you are also helping thousands of your customers to modernize and migrate their on-prem the DXC software, like data center, and migrate into AWS platform. So the partnership is very strong, both from the mainframe competency point of view as well as supporting insurance industry and across the subject matter expertise and all. But one of the things that we would like to kind of continue to excel in this partnership is support all our mainframe customers, not just within the insurance sector and across all the mainframe customers across many industries.
Sure. And the opportunity from DXC standpoint is how do we leverage some of the new patents, right, the PaaS features that you have. So once we have COBOL containerized, there's a journey from there as to how do we then start using some of the PaaS features. And even, if you look at some of the latest DXC solutions like DXC Life Assure, that's a cloud native, AWS native solution. And how do we take our customers from Vantage WMA to more of a cloud native solution is the journey what we are working on along with AWS.
Yeah.
And a question on these lines to Murli is, how do you see some of these patents helping you, right, as you have customer discussions, not just within insurance, even outside insurance?
Yeah, absolutely, Atul. Great question. Well, AWS is really investing heavily into the mainframe modernization world. With their offering called M2, it's really giving wide open options for customers to make a choice of where they wanted to land. You wanted a like-for-like risk-free migration, go ahead and take the re-hosting or re-platforming. If you want to go take the path of moving yourself from native COBOL to Java, then just take the path of refactoring through Blue Edge, right? With the latest, every year, they're not disappointing us, right? So they just keep adding more and more innovations which are helping our delivery projects to go on time into the production. And it's even accelerating the work. So some of the things they partnered with NTT recently. Yesterday they made an announcement on that. That's giving you an alternate to Micro Focus on AWS as part of the M2 offering. And their precisely offering is helping us with the continuous data replication and their test automation strategies, and they're bringing lots and lots of solutions which are really coming in hand when we go for a mainframe modernization project execution. It's keeping us on time, on budget. That's a real key for us.
And a question in line with your earlier comment on functionality and performance is what you want to guarantee to customers. How does that help? And the reason I ask is sometimes there's a question around performance, right? You're containerizing it, you're probably adding layers. And how is some of the latest AWS trends and technologies helping us solve or answer those two questions?
Well, see, any customer, when they want to take the journey, to the matter of fact, right? So they want to see two things. One, I don't want it to disturb the ecosystem and put my business at risk. Just, I need a functional equivalence.
Yes.
So I don't have to train tons of people on the end user community side of the product to go out and cross-train themselves and do this. Two, they cannot be frustrated by having a slow machine on a Monday morning, right? So these two objectives are what drives the whole modernization program from a timeline perspective, budget perspective,
Sure.
and whatever it is, right? So we take a lot of measures as part of the journey, making various check gates, which is, hey, I've put the module 1 in production there. Is it really making the right performance on the target? Or what's happening with the surrounding systems? Is it continuously getting integrated or not? Is it able to send and receive the data to the satellite applications or not? Or is it scalable, right? Can I just replicate the same thing in just a snap of a second? So these are all the factors that comes into the play.
Sure, thank you. I think we tried to cover a lot around the current challenges, the migration, how we did it in record 13 months. There's always a question about the future, right? Now, what next? And if you look at John Hancock's story, moving the core to cloud really accelerates the journey, right? There's no reason or no excuse for not moving the peripheral systems to cloud. And I've seen a similar case at Geico where you move the core to cloud and the whole journey accelerates. And a question to Marianne around that is, what's the future, right? So two questions. Future from the core system standpoint. I know there were a few APIs developed for better integration and things like that. So that's one question. How does that help the core systems from a future standpoint? And second question is, what's the overall larger picture with John Hancock, right? What's the future?
So John Hancock wants to have a healthier, longer, better relationship with customers. As we fit into the IT world, and what we're going to do is, again, I reiterate the APIs, right? We got 30 plus APIs at the get-go and used one. Now we have our web team looking into the APIs. I think we just implemented 11 to 12 demographical type APIs so customers can go onto the website and do things like transfer a fund, do a fund transfer, do, address changes, all of that kind of things. Again, going digital. So, as a company, you look at two things, right? Well, at least on the IT side, we look at expenses. We nailed that with the migration to AWS. We nailed consolidating our systems. We had 3 payout systems. We had the legacy John Hancock, legacy Manulife, and we had WMA that held our structured settlement product. We went from 3 to 1 payout on the annuity side. We do have a fixed product system, but so we're leading that way. But the APIs and the digitalization and effective cost savings, that's what we're looking at. And to make lives better for our customers.
That is very helpful, Marianne. Let me ask the same question to Rao, right? The future's bright, promising. What do you see 5 years down the line, right, from an AWS standpoint?
Yeah, so when we started our journey supporting our mainframe modernization customers, right, we started off with 3 main objectives. So customers asked us 3 categories. One, there are a lot of challenges with the cost and they want to exit the data centers. We supported them with a re-platform where you'll be able to kind of take your COBOL application or run it on AWS by modernizing infrastructure, operating system, and all the surrounding systems. And second, customers have asked us to modernize their entire software stack, including replacing their COBOL with Java and replacing their databases with the PostgreSQL or whatever the target database is. And we were able to use Blue Age Refactor to automate the migration of the entire modernization of the software stack. The third area that customers have asked us is they have a lot of enterprise data locked on the mainframe, and they would like to take advantage of data by migrating and replicating that data so that they can build machine learning, AI, and other business capabilities. So now that we have been able to achieve and continue to modernize on that path, where we see where we are heading over the next 3 to 5 years is we have made some announcements related to artificial intelligence and generative AI. So with the advent of large language models, we see the mainframe modernization and migration projects are going to be expedited much faster than where we are seeing today. The biggest pain points of mainframe migration is customers are not asking why I need to migrate. Their biggest struggle is how can I kind of reduce the cost of migration? How can I reduce the risk of the migration? How can I reduce the time it takes to migrate? So we have to figure out a way to reduce the cost, risk, and as well as the time. So we are planning to introduce AI and generative AI and 4 phases of the project. The first one is, let's say when you have a very big large monolith with hundreds of millions of lines of code, you really don't know where to start the modernization. How do you slice that application into multiple chunks? And where do you start? And what is the dependency of that into the rest of the application? AI and Gen AI is going to really help you accelerate the decoupling or decomposing the application so that you take a big monolith and break it down into macro and microservices so that you create a migration plan of incremental strangler pattern. That's the number one. Number two, where we see is once this application is kind of decomposed, how do you kind of reverse engineer this application and create a business rules and business specifications so that AI can kind of reverse engineer and give you a business rules, what the application really doing. Because these applications were developed 20, 25 years back, and there are no SMEs available to reverse engineer all of that. So the AI and Gen AI is really going to help you reverse engineer so that it will give you a business rules out of it, which will help you to transform into your target language, whether it is Python or Java or whatever is your target language, which is the more of business reverse engineering as well as generating the target language code. We see AI and Gen AI is going to really accelerate that part of it. The third is majority of the migration projects, 50 to 60% is actually testing. Migration and converting and transporting is not the toughest part. You have to actually test it and prove that this is actually performing the way it is actually performing today. And we actually see AI and Gen AI is really going to generate the test cases, synthetic test data, and as well as accelerate, automate, and record and replay all of those phases using artificial intelligence and generative AI. We actually launched AWS application testing service yesterday, and which is going to get integrated with AI over the next few years. Finally, the insurance industry, all the financial industry is kind of regulated by the regulations and compliance and all, right? So all these security policies that were developed on the mainframe today were all actually regulators approved or auditors approved. When you migrate all of this into AWS platform, you have to figure out a way to automatically prove that the security and compliance of the platform that you are running in the future state, how do you mathematically prove that these are one and same so that your chief security officer, your auditors and regulators kind of give you a go-ahead to move forward. So we are introducing automated reasoning in the security validation. It's mathematically prove that the security policies that is running on your mainframe, whether it is RACF or ACF2 or a top secret, take all those policies and compare those policies with identity and access management or Active Directory policies which are deployed on AWS, so that automated reasoning mathematically prove that these security policies are one and same, so that we'll be able to kind of accelerate the compliance and auditing and security processes. So these are the 4 areas that we are investing, and we see by advancing AWS in tooling in these areas is going to accelerate the mainframe modernization and migration projects over the next couple of years.
Yeah, thank you, Rao. That's very helpful. And from a DXC standpoint, we are sitting on these, looking at these 2 expectations, right? One is from the customers, saying they want better experience, healthier life for their end customers. Expectations from the partners, where you are scaling, taking AI to customer data, not the other way around, and also trying to accelerate mainframe modernization through the patents around regulatory security. Question to Murli is, how does DXC scale to these expectations from customers and partners, right? And quickly be an important element of the ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely, Atul. We always, DXC has the commitment to the customers, saying that we are the first one to bring the latest happening in the market. And we have been heavily partnered with AWS. And even on the M2 launch, we are the launch partners. And we are the early adopters of this. And we promise our customer base, saying that, hey, we are here to bring the best of the breed from the technology perspective to you. So our goal is to make sure whatever is available from a solutions perspective, the best solutions available in the market, we want to leverage and give the best output to our customers and keep a happy partner.
So thank you so much. So any last comments from anybody, Marianne?
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, these are exciting times, Atul. I think mainframe modernization is a very serious topic in the market, and DXC is all committed to make this happen in a risk-free manner to our customer base. That's a commitment we have to the market.
Rao, any final comments?
Yeah, so the mainframe modernization is a very complex subject, and I started my journey 20 years back solving a Y2K problem. And we never anticipated that I'm here today to kind of modernize those mainframes and migrate to AWS Cloud. But this is an exciting and challenging opportunity for all of us to help and solve our customers. And looking forward for this challenge and continue to innovate on behalf of AWS to help our customers and work with partners like DXC. Looking forward for that.
Thank you.
Sure, that's very helpful. So thank you, Marianne, Murli, Rao, for your insights here. We're very happy to share the story of John Hancock mainframe.